What's going on, guys? How you doing? A little bit of a different video here. All right, amps aren't here. Amps aren't here. Right, we're dealing with this storm down here, and I thought that I would kind of talk about this a little bit. Just being somebody who lives down here, I'm not a native Floridian, although I've been coming down here for over 25 years, and I've had relatives living here for over 25 years, and been through Ian and others. Ian has been my only major storm. Although I did barely miss Sandy when it hit New Jersey. My mom got Sandy. I literally left like within hours of it hitting. Basically, I flew out of Philadelphia to go back to Los Angeles. Anyways, yeah, I thought we'd talk a little bit about this just because there's like national news, like weather news, and there's local weather news. And my wife's family is in California, and they watch, news, and they think we're going to die, and no different. I have a friend that lives in Asheville, and they just got wrecked, right? I text them like, hey, do you have a house anymore? I'm so sorry for your loss, all that kind of thing. Are you okay? Type of thing. He said, yeah, my house is fine. The news would have you think that Asheville isn't there anymore. Basically, yeah. I mean, right? Obviously, I'm being a bit facetious, but you know what I'm saying. So much of it is just destroyed, but they show you the most destructive things, which is real, but they're making you think, or maybe not making you, but you know what I'm saying. They're just giving the impression that it's just everything is devastated, so it's all gone. And it's not always like that. And again, I was here for Ian, so it's like everything that happened there and where it was, and you would just think it looks terrible. And it's not. I'm not saying that's not terrible. It is, and it can happen to you, all of it. But it's just when you see like the local news versus national news. So there was a clip that I watched of CNN, so national news on the hurricane, and while it does have information out there, also some of it is a little bit more alarming. And also you may not know some specifics. They named all these areas. They named basically the entirety of the west coast of Florida, the Gulf Coast, the entirety, which at this point, I'm filming this Monday afternoon. All of that is still within the cone of possibility, right? It is. When they show that whole, like the track, it's still all within there, right? There have been tracks from Fort Myers all the way up to Cedar Key. With the majority of them, so far, NHC is saying Bradenton, Sarasota type area. So I thought it'd be interesting to go through this a little bit and talk about it and just give you my kind of experience and viewpoint. I know this is totally different for the channel, but I'm dealing with it right now. Right? I'm in prep mode right now. And I have videos out until Sunday. Hopefully, we'll see. Did anybody remember during Ian my reading videos? I really wanted to continue just a video a day. Make sure, because I do videos every day, at least one. Hopefully, we don't have to do that again. I think it'll be fine. If we do lose power, it probably won't be for as long, unless, of course, this hurricane moves south. Then I'm in trouble. But I think. I don't have the same feeling as Ian. Ian, I just knew, like days before, like this is about to be really bad. Get everything. I remember shuddering before everybody else. I remember, not everybody, but a lot. I remember the band that I was in at the time. Those guys who are from here, locals, were like, nah, this is, they were totally like that. And I was just like, and then 2 days beforehand, we had a gig, and I'm like, they were slightly more nervous, but I'm like, and then afterwards, I'm like, anyways, obviously always better to over prepare. So let's get into this. This is ABC News. So one of the first things that you learn when you move down here, especially to the Gulf side, is listen to Dennis Phillips. Okay, he works for ABC Action News. This is out of Tampa. He is a little bit more specific to that area than where I'm at. Where I'm at is a little bit more like Wink News, but I'd still rather listen to Dennis, because even like Wink News is like bring the track in different places than Even the NHC has it. And I'm just like, I'm listening to Dennis Phillips. Like, okay, I see that you're saying that, but I'm going to wait for Dennis to say it. And then I'm going to believe him. Sorry. That's just what it is. Okay, so latest forecast. Let's get into this. Bam.
So many people, of course, nervous after just getting through Hurricane Helene. So when we look at this storm here, we're talking about storm surge and wind.
You know, we've learned a lot, right? Just in the last 10 days. These lessons are fresh. Right. And I think if you've been watching our coverage and been watching folks saying, I didn't expect this.
That's not Dan Phillips, by the way. This is another
I wish I had gone and left.
Guy on that channel.
This is good advice for this storm.
And you're probably going to get that.
So for Helene, we got storm surge. And I think that what they're doing, and this is obviously a major storm, but I think that what happened for Helene was they under prepared. They didn't evacuate, at least to my knowledge, from what I saw. And I pay attention to this stuff. I like weather. I used to watch a weather channel when I was a kid. I've always should have been a meteorologist. I like weather. It's very fascinating to me. But I didn't see that they evacuated, like a mandatory evacuation, zone A. I think it was suggested, but they didn't mandatory evacuate. Already today, this morning, they mandatory evacuated A and B. So these are all like the closer, if you're on the water, how close you are to the water, what your flood zone is, all those types of things. They're all kind of intermingled, not fully, like, because flood zone is slightly different than evacuation zone, right? But they didn't mandatory evacuate A. And now I think they're over preparing, which, I mean, again, it's a major storm. I think they should. It's a good idea, but I definitely see that. They didn't mandatory evac A, and a lot of people stayed, and they got surge. And I think, 13 people, was it? Is that what they said? A bunch of people died, right? There are people that died that didn't have to die, and they did it because they didn't evacuate, and they were in zone A. So often that means that they got flooded, their house got flooded out, and they drowned in their house. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's really terrible. And already with so many old people, that can't do things without help, without literal physical help from another person, it's like you have to be on top of these things. You have to be on top of these things. So they're really on top of it. And there's going to be more about this because the ground here locally, Sarasota just last night had record rainfall in 1 hour. It was like over 4 inches of rain in 1 hour. The ground everywhere here. I'm south of Sarasota County, but even here, Sarasota County, like all up and down the coast, because Helene was just last week. The ground is drenched. It has not absorbed. It has not evaporated. We haven't had a ton of sun. It's just been overcast and just still raining. So the ground is just sopping wet. It's saturated. So when this comes through, obviously storm surge is going to happen, and that's very bad. You don't want to be around for that. But I think a lot of places are going to flood out from just rainfall, because there's going to be nowhere for the water to go, the rainfall to go, because the ground is just wet. It's just going to fill up on the ground. It's just going to rise on the ground. Everybody in Florida, like, it happens anyways when it rains. We all have swales and things like that, and just areas of your yard where water tends to pool. That's going to be intensely magnified. And I would not be surprised if houses flood from rainfall during this storm in a lot of areas that normally wouldn't flood.
No matter what, because we're tracking, it's different than
Very bad.
This is, you said, coming down to the hour.
Yeah, there's some folks that are going to be surprised how much surge there is, and there are going to be some folks that are going to be surprised that they're not getting any surge at all.
Right.
And that's the thing. Now, the satellite's not coming up, but I just got another update. It's now up to 150.
Oh.
So we went from 125
They've been
to
talking
150.
about it could go up to Cat 5.
So now Milton is
2 days
almost a Category 5. It's 6 miles away from Category 5. Pressure's down to 940
They'll put it
millibars.
at 5, of course.
Not as much of a concern for us. This is still the forecast. But you start to be concerned about folks down in northern Yucatan, Progreso here.
I'm not concerned
the
about
Merida
that.
area. this is heading.
Last night on Dennis Phillips' nightly show, he called it survivor guilt. I was like, does that involve Jeff Probst? No, I'm just kidding. It was like survivor guilt, because he was saying that, you know, the track moves, right? And it gets nudged, it'll get nudged north, it'll get nudged south. And he was saying that, you know, if it moves away from you, it means that somebody else gets it. And then you get survivor guilt. And I was just like, I'd never heard of that. I like, even going to Catholic school my whole life, like, and all the guilt things, it's just like survivor guilt. If that were really a thing, if people just live their life with survivor guilt, you would have survival guilt constantly. You would always be in a mode of guilt, and that is completely wrong. A better mode to be in is a mode of grateful. That would be a better place to be, being grateful, but not guilt, because then you'd feel guilty about all the people in third world countries, all the children that starve and die, all of the, et cetera, et cetera. Let's keep going. We can go on forever if we're talking about guilt. I'm talking forever. No. Survivor guilt? I don't think so. People in war-torn countries, the list will never stop for things to potentially be guilty about. I was just laughing at that. I was just like, survivor guilt? Oh, come on, man.
Very close to the coast, and the stronger the winds get, they're going to extend a little farther away from the center of the storm. So they're going to start to get some winds here, and the surge forecast keeps going up for the Yucatan. Now, they're not as vulnerable to surge here because the ocean is deeper, so it's harder for the storm to scoop up a lot of water. They were forecasting a 3 to 5 foot surge. They're probably going to have to increase that, maybe.
That's still,
you know,
I mean,
4 to
5.
6
that's
or 4 to
what
8 even.
That's what our area got for Helene. Our area, Charlotte Harbor area got 5. About that, somewhere around 5, 4, 5, 6 within all that. Lots of places flooded. Downtown Punta Gorda floods in a bad rainstorm. So those places that just re-drywalled all of their entire building are going to have to do it again. That really sucks. Like a week later, that sucks so bad. Don't buy in a flood zone. I mean, it's really hard to say because it's Florida. It is all a flood zone, but don't buy in a place that historically floods.
For us, we're still expecting the storm to enter an area of strong upper level shear. So it should be stretched and weakening as it approaches our coast. But because it's starting at such a high level, sure, it could weaken, but it's going to take a long time for this to wind down. By the way, interesting enough here in the forecast from the NHC, this is going to get so sheared apart that they don't even have this as a hurricane past Florida, just an area of low pressure. They don't think this is even going to be tropical.
Okay, so even just last night on Dennis Phillips, they're saying that when it exits, it's going to be like a Cat 1 still. So that's changing. And I think that's a good thing because it's going to get sheared. Hopefully, this is the hope, before it makes landfall. And that's going to help just weaken it, make the winds less. I think that's a big deal. I mean, that's what everybody's kind of just hoping will happen. It's one of those things that you're just not going to know until like it's practically on us. That's why it's like, no, just get out of the way. Just get out of the way. It's not worth chancing.
Tropical by the time it gets.
So
we're kind of in this transition zone, which does work in our favor. You don't want a Category 4 storm or 3 storm with a very small eye. We saw that in Charlie, right? I mean, you got a lot of destruction in a very small area. You want to take those winds, spread them out to more folks. Sure, that's maybe not as good, but what that does is it drops the wind speed down, so you don't get as much of the serious damage. Because 150 mile an hour winds, they do damage. Mm-hmm. Now, 125 is where it's supposed to be, according to this forecast, Wednesday afternoon here, still west of us, and continuing to weaken. So maybe making landfall at 120, 115,
that's way
maybe
better.
Even 110.
I mean,
Major
I know
hurricane starts at 111. So
I know that sounds bad still, and it is, but really, it's way, 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 way better. Way better.
It's at 110. I don't feel any better about that than 115. It's really the same storm. Hurricane watches are up. No surprise here. Of course, it's all about the track. For Helene, we were all on the strong side of the storm, and everyone got a surge. For Milton, where it makes landfall on the coast will determine who gets an onshore flow and a surge at and just south of the landfall point, and who, just north of the eye, gets very little in terms of surge. The wind would push the water away. So it's all about the track. And although we will know by tomorrow, I think by tomorrow we'll be able to take some parts of the coast out of the danger zone. When you're talking about actually trying to pin down the exact point of landfall, that's not going to happen until a couple of hours before the landfall actually occurs. So the latest numbers from the Hurricane Center, worst case scenario for the Bay is if it goes northern Pinellas and Pasco, then you get 8 to 12. If it goes...
Okay, which it's weird that he's saying this because right now, currently, literally where his hand is, right here, is where they're saying it's going to go right now. And this is like Sarasota, Bradenton, Manatee, Sarasota County, right there. The surge, which they're talking about right now, goes from the eye wall south. That's not going to be here. The most surge is from the eye wall south. So if NHC has it here, that means from here down is going to have the worst surge. That means Sarasota, Venice, Englewood, Nokomis, Osprey, all this down here is all going to get whacked with storm surge, that 8 to 12, which I'm sure they're going to bump to 15. You just know they're going to do it. They always do. They're going to bump it up. Of course they are. As it approaches, they're going to bump it up. I wouldn't even be surprised if they bump the most local stuff to the eye wall to 18. Because that's just what they do. They'll put Charlotte Harbor 8 to 12 potentially. I mean, that sucks, but that it's very possible. And for Helene, I guess, again, we got like 5. Whoever got it for Helene, whoever got water for Helene is getting it again. And potentially more. It's really bad. It's very bad. If it goes where he's saying, like if it's up here, see this into here would be if the storm goes up here. So it's weird because the north end of the storm doesn't get as bad of surge. Like it gets some, but really relatively little. So it's kind of weird that he's showing the numbers like this.
South of the Bay, this number doesn't happen. If it goes into Sarasota, Venice, Englewood, you're not going to get that surge. You're getting...
Yeah, see, that's why I'm like, that's what he's just said. So why are they putting that there? It's like, I don't know. I don't understand why they're doing that.
I think it's some water rise ahead, but then the winds start pushing the water out and we get a reverse surge in the Bay. The Nature Coast wouldn't get 5 to 10. Now, if it tracks farther north, you could get these numbers for sure. Similarly, farther south, if it does track into Sarasota or maybe over towards Charlotte County, well, then this 8 to 12 moves down with the eye. This number will follow the eye and points just south. It's placed near the Bay now because that's kind of the average of all the models. A lot of these are clustering. They're not this precise, but it's certainly, I don't want to see this. This is not good. You don't want all of these clustering right here north. You don't want this track. Hurricane Center is better. Obviously, these down for us here at Fort Myers.
Yeah, see, Hurricane Center has it going through basically Sarasota, right? Like the last track that I saw where it was more of a close-up, it was going right over Siesta Key, which really sucks because Siesta Key just flooded last week. I know people that live over there. I haven't been to the beach, Siesta Key. I've been on the island for gigs, but I haven't been to the beach, and I don't know if I'll be there. I think I'm not gonna see it. It's apparently one of the nicest beaches in Florida because of white sand, right? That type of beach or whatever. It's like all tropical like that. I haven't been to it. Not much of a beach guy, even though I grew up on Jersey Shore and my first job was at Point Pleasant Boardwalk. New Jersey, you got to pay to get on the beach. I'm like, yeah. Anyways.
I don't want to send this to Fort Myers. This is the last thing they want to see. But there are still some models down to the south. That's a better situation for us because surge would not be an issue if this thing goes to Fort Myers. Not for us. It would be for Southwest Florida. Suddenly, Naples and Fort Myers are on big alert. So the tropical storm force winds start approaching the area late Wednesday.
Okay. Okay, so for Helene, Helene went up the coast and it hit the Big Bend area. And basically all of us got like 40 to that yellow area, that 40 to 60, let's say, mile an hour. And this is gusts. This is wind gusts. It's not just constant. Although it was constantly windy, there were definitely bigger gusts. And those were probably within that 40 to 60 for sure. If that's all we get, that's fine. Because that was not a big deal here. There was no trees down. Wasn't a big deal. And again, I used to live in the desert in California. Wind is a pretty much everyday occurrence in the desert out there. Some super windy days, some not. I remember the first house that we bought was in Landers. That first weekend that we stayed at the house, it was a really bad windstorm. They said it was 60 mile an hour winds, and it was over our house. It felt different than the 60 mile an hour gusts here. It was like a train going over the house. It was really loud and just like felt like it was in the living room. Where here, it's kind of different, feels different. It didn't feel like it was in the house. Maybe that has more to do with the house. I don't know, but that's what it was. That's what happened. If that's what it is, I mean, it's not great, but that's not a big deal. Looks like we probably will get that orange 58 to 70. Let's just call it 60 to 75. If it moves south, we're definitely getting more than that, for sure. And that's not great.
Strong tropical storm force winds don't arrive until after 4 p.m. based on the current timing from the Hurricane Center,
And this is another thing that has been changing every single new track update, is that they keep on slowing this storm down and bringing back when it's going to make landfall. Because just 2 days ago, it was 9 a.m. Wednesday at that exact point. Then they bumped it to 11 a.m. Wednesday. It's at that exact point. Then 1 p.m. Wednesday. That was just yesterday. Now 4 p.m. Now, today is Monday. Okay, Monday afternoon. And it's like, man, damn, this thing is going to hit overnight again. It's like they always hit overnight. It sucked. Like to have a storm hit overnight just sucks because already you're, just like the anxiety, it's approaching, it's coming. You hope that you did everything and you remembered everything. And then to just not be able to sleep, basically, because there's a storm, just sucks. It just feels like it always happens. Ian wasn't that way. It was during the day, but Ian was a really slow storm. It was all day and into the night. It was so long. It was so long. It took forever. Like at least like Helene was pretty fast. Like that thing was in and out. It was like a matter of hours. And I heard that Charlie was the same way. I wasn't here for Charlie, but I heard that Charlie was the same way. It was literally like a couple hours gone. Hopefully this thing speeds up.
Will be updated at 11 a.m. So until 4 o'clock on Wednesday's going to be okay. Now, it'll be raining, I think, all day, but I don't think the conditions get dangerous until after 4 o'clock. So if you still make a last-minute decision to get out of the way because you're in an evacuation zone, I would not travel to a far destination on Wednesday. You don't want to be going probably to Orlando or Tallahassee or Miami at that point. But you can travel in our area, just close, just to get out of the water. Remember, for most folks, the evacuation...
Yeah, I mean, that puts Charlotte County and even Lee County, parts of Lee County into that orange zone, 58, 60 to 75 mile an hour winds. Yeah.
Is maybe just a couple of miles. That's really all you need to do. Maybe even a mile just to get out of that flood zone and you're fine.
And that's basically 8 p.m. landfall, give or take. So yeah, it's going to be at when it's dark. That sucks. Oh man, these people are not going to be able to sleep. This is going to be not cool, because they're going to get woken up. To anybody that stays already in our area, zone A and B is mandatory evacuation. You got to get out. That doesn't mean you can do what you want, but it means what it ultimately means is if you stay and you have a problem and you call 911, we're not coming to get you. Not until the state of emergency is over. That's what that means ultimately. So it's on you. Really bad. Yeah.
You can stay here for the wind. The wind will be all right. There'll be trees down, that kind of thing. But you can ride this out with the wind. We just don't want you in a flood zone. That's the danger. Strongest part of the storm Wednesday evening, Wednesday night. By 8 o'clock Thursday, it is done. So this is the European.
I think they're going to get a lot of rain.
It's okay in terms of the track. I don't think this is the track that's going to happen, but I like what it's showing with the rain here. Filling in. This is Wednesday morning. The center is still offshore. No one's getting hurricane force winds, but all of us are already getting rain. And look how it's stretched. The north side of the storm is a lot rainier. This is the center, much less rain to the south. This is the shear that this storm will be experiencing. Unfortunately, if it does go just south of Tampa.
Okay, so for us, right, by the time, okay, so yeah, that wind shear really does help like a ton. So for us, before it even makes landfall, the bulk of our rain is going to be over. I mean, that's good for us if this track stays the same, which it could. I mean, there's still plenty of time for this track to change. Plenty of time. So, but that's good to see. Okay, cool.
The strongest part of the eye wall, the red here, would go right through Pinellas and Hillsborough County. So wind would be a concern. You could see a lot of power outages across the area along and just near this, where the landfall location is. Today and tomorrow, good for preps. Wednesday is that wet day, and then the weekend, for those without power, this is exactly what we need. Cooler temperatures and comfortable overnights down into the 60s.
Okay. All right. So there it is. Yeah. So ultimately, you know, storm and just where you get your information and all that, that's like part of this also is really a big deal, because even just from local to local is different a bit. Like even just the slight differences, and it really matters. Even just earlier, Wink News had it going basically into like Venice or Englewood. And these guys and the NHC still has it going through Sarasota, Bradenton. That is a big deal for Charlotte County and Lee County. It's a big difference. It's a big difference. You're talking storm surge difference. Huge. So, and again, there's plenty of time for this thing to move. And it very well may. It often does. Right? So we'll see. I think that where I'm at is fine, unless, of course, it moves further south, then that sucks. That's not great. I think I'll still be fine. I mean, I know that I personally will be fine. Like me, myself, physically will be fine because I'm getting out of here. But that house and things in the house is what I'm talking about, right? I think it will still be fine. But, you know, we'll see. It's all a wreck. Yeah, I just thought I'd do this because I'm in the middle of it. And I'm sure so many of you, you know, lots of you message. There was a few of you that messaged last week about Helene or whatever. I get, you know, it's like, yeah, this is not even a thing. We didn't even lose power. 60-mile-an-hour gusts we were in, didn't even lose power. There were neighbors, actually people in my neighborhood that lost power. I don't know why we didn't, but we didn't. So, will we lose power for this? It's very possible. This is more likely that we'll lose power for this, that's for sure, especially if it moves south on us. Especially if it moves south, then we definitely will. How long? Who knows? I mean, they were pretty good with Ian, and Ian was a major storm. It went right over my house, like literally right over my house. We're ready. I got a generator. You know, it's all good. So I just thought I'd do this. I know this is totally different, but I know people are going to be like, I hope you know, stay safe, all that kind of stuff. And just a little bit of viewpoint on all of this and weather. I like weather. It's definitely super interesting. And, I used to get it when I lived on the East Coast. And then when I moved to California, there was no weather, basically. It's always just nice weather, especially in the desert. The desert, I always thought that the desert was like real California, like real California weather, because it's always sunny. There was no like that June gloom business wasn't a thing in the desert. So desert is amazing. Anyways, so all the other things. All right. Thank you guys. I'll catch you in the next video, and hopefully I won't lose power so I can continue to make videos next week, because I don't have them next week. I have through this week. This Yes album is the last that I have posted. So hopefully we'll be fine and I can make more videos. All right, awesome. Thank you guys. Later.